Hello and welcome to Mainly Menswear. My name is Dwayne McLeod and I'm glad that you're here. Today's video is going to be a little tailoring video. I'm currently working on a fall jacket and I'm at that point where I'm putting the lining in the sleeves, and I thought this might be a good time to do a little video. If you follow my blog or if you follow me on Instagram, you already know that I am the guy that is least likely to ever bag a lining. And so this is a more traditional tailoring approach. It's not difficult, and I actually think that you'll find it interesting, and it might turn out to be a technique that's valuable to you as you work through your sewing practice. So without further ado, let's get started. This will be a video for all of my tailoring geek friends. I am currently working on this pattern. It's a Berta pattern number 7291. It's for an unlined jacket, and this pattern is designed to be made up in a boiled wool with a wool knit trim. In my case, I am going to be making this jacket up in this camel printed velveteen, but I'm also going to be using the trim. But because I'm not using the boiled wool, I'm going to need to line this jacket, and I thought that I would just do a little video on how to line the sleeves for a set-in sleeve on a jacket. So these are my pattern pieces. I've cut this out of it's a Cupro lining, and what I do is I cut on an extra 1/8 of an inch on the sides of the pattern. Because of the construction of this jacket, I am ending the lining right here with the pattern. The real changes are up at the top here, and what I like to do is I like to flare my lining out just a bit over here, also over here, to give a little bit of extra room, because if a sleeve lining is going to blow out anywhere, it's probably going to be at the underarm section. So having a little bit of extra fabric there is a bonus. I've also added on 1 inch all along the top of the sleeve cap. This is going to be set in by hand, and you're going to want a little bit of extra material to work with. For the undersleeve, it's the same process. I've cut on an extra 1/8 of an inch on the sides, flared the edge out a bit. On the undersleeve, you want to add on just a touch more. This is 1.25 inches, because of course that underarm section is going to be the place with the most stress, and it's the most likely place for your lining to blow out, and there's nothing more discouraging than that. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to sew these sleeve linings up, and then I'll show you how it gets attached to the sleeve and how the sleeve and the lining end up getting used almost as a single unit. Makes the construction so much easier. This may be a little bit difficult to see because there's so much black in this project, but after you have sewn up both your garment sleeve and your lining sleeve, you want to turn both of them inside out, and you will place your garment sleeve on your work surface, and then you want to match the undersleeve of the lining to the undersleeve of your garment sleeve. And when you do this, the seam allowances should line up here. I'm just going to slide my little point turner in here so that you can see this is the seam allowances of the lining, and here's the seam allowance of our garment. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be sewing these outermost seam allowances together, and the and the seam should align here. So when you flip it back, if you see that these seams align, you know that you've got it right. So we're going to hold this, and using some silk thread, we'll use a diagonal stitch and stitch this together. So here I am at the cuff end of this jacket, and I just thought that I would note that I have added a bias strip of a hair canvas around the cuff. I just prefer a little bit more structure at the cuff on my jackets, and this has just been basted in place with some silk thread. Eventually this edge will be covered with the knit binding trim. You may find it easier to clip these seam allowances together here. It might make this a little bit simpler, but starting near the cuff end with a little back stitch, I am just going to do a little diagonal stitch to attach those two seam allowances together. And this is not fancy, and I think if you use a silk thread, you will find that this actually goes along quite quickly because the thread does not tangle. And the little clips will hold your seam allowances in place, and you can really work along quite quickly, just securing these two seam allowances together. I will stop at about 4 inches from the top of the sleeve. That will just give us some maneuvering room when the time comes to actually set the sleeve and sew in the sleeve lining. So I will just continue with this little diagonal stitch. Then I will go to the other side and repeat the process. Again, we're stitching the outermost seam allowances together. And then once that's done, the real fun part starts. So this is going to be the fun part. Both of the seam allowances have been stitched together with this diagonal stitch. Here you're just seeing the reverse side of it. Here's the diagonal stitch, and the undersleeve is attached to the undersleeve of the jacket. So what you are going to want to do here, and I'll try to do it under the camera, you're going to slide your hand down inside your jacket sleeve, and at the end you will grab onto the lining like this. Now it's just a matter of turning this inside out, just like that. And you have a perfectly lined sleeve. And you will not have to worry about your sleeve poking out the hem when you put this jacket on, because the lining is actually attached inside the sleeve, and we've preserved all of the extra ease at the top. And I just think this is a beautiful way to finish off a sleeve. I will baste the lining to the jacket around the cuff, and then eventually this edge is going to be covered with a binding. So I hope this has been informative for all of you tailoring geeks. This is really the opposite of bagging a lining, but I think that it gives a beautiful result. I hope this has been informative, and enjoy the time in your sewing room. I know that I am these late summer days. I'm not quite sure what the next video will be. I'm very slowly working on this jacket process. There may be another video as construction continues. So be well, be safe, and I will see you later.